Well, hi, everybody. My name, most people here know me as Rena Calabrese. I am the president and CEO of Neighbor Settlement, the museum in town. And I was asked actually to see if we could talk a little bit about what happens when you want to change careers, or when you don't want to change careers, then you end up changing careers. I am a lawyer, have always been a lawyer. And this is my first non-legal job. So as you can understand, there was a very, very 360 sort of turn in terms of what I needed to do. So today we're going to talk a little bit about pondering that professional pivot. And what I hope to do for you is to construct at least a pathway for some practical plan that you can come and begin to put together if you are considering a professional pivot or a career. And as you talk about that, experience will also help me to guide you in terms of those minimizing your pitfalls. There does come a time, I think, in every career where you just say, I'm out. And you really have to evaluate whether you are really out or just tired, right? Yeah. And whether it is really time to have a plan. So that's what I hope to talk to you about today. Little girl right there that kind of sticks out, that would be me. And I will tell you that I had one dream in life, and I only had one dream, and that was to become a lawyer. Didn't want to be an astronaut. I didn't want to be a doctor or a nurse or a housewife or I don't know, anything else that you might think of. I wanted to be a lawyer. And so as I grew up, I had an idea. It was Georgetown or bust. And I was going to go to Georgetown because they had a double degree program. And that double degree program was a law degree and also a master's in international translations, because my dream was to go work at the United Nations. And heck, one of my uncles did work there. So I thought, I got this. I'm gonna go there for 3 years. And I finished college in 3 years. And then I was gonna go on to Georgetown. I had talked to them, I was putting my application in. And then I got married the first time. Oh, so I'll tell you, we'll go back to this one. By the time that you see this photograph here, I had gotten married. I had also separated from my ex-husband. I had a daughter. I was fighting custody of my daughter for about 3.5, almost 4 years of trying to get divorced. And so I had a very different mentality. You know what? New responsibility. Any law school is better than no law school at all, because at least I get to be a lawyer, and at least I'd like to practice the craft that I like. So I became a lawyer, and I started practicing immigration law. And one of those days when I was at one of the meetings for the American Immigration Lawyers Association, the director of the Immigration Council for the American Bar Association came to our meeting and said, hey, you guys are immigration lawyers. Do you know any success stories of immigrants? Because this year at the annual meeting of the American Bar Association, we want to do an immigration ceremony, and we want to have that one success story come up and speak. And jokingly, and this is how life is, one meeting, one call, and one new beginning. Jokingly, I said to my friend next to me, I said, hey, I'm one of those success stories. I immigrated to the United States. I put in my paperwork to become a US citizen. That's me. Kidding. And I don't know, about a few days later, I get a phone call. And it's Carol, the staff director for this section. Hey, would you be interested in, being the speaker for this? And I said, sure. Right? Networking. The heck? Now, mind you, I went to New York when I married my first husband. And when I went to New York, the whole Navy Pier thing did not look like that. And when I came back, I hadn't been there. So that's where I was speaking. And so I got out there and I see like 200 chairs up on the stage. And I go, oh, so you're gonna do it all up here? Because the immigration ceremonies at the time, you would do them in the federal courts because there'd be 20 people, 50 people. Maybe if you had a whole big, they'd use a big courtroom, then it had 70, right? And I said, whoa, that's gonna be a pretty big one. And she goes, yes, you'll be coming out this way. And these are the people that we're gonna become, that are gonna become US citizens. And I said, oh, and she said, the audience is gonna be out there. And I said, oh, okay. I looked around and I said, so how many people fit in here? She's like, oh, I think like 5,000, something like that. I said, how many are you expecting? Oh, we're gonna have a full crowd. I said, shit, I should have practiced more. That was the first thing I thought. So the good part, you can see all of those people behind you are the people that became US citizens that day. I became a US citizen that day with my father. And apparently I did pretty okay because I got a standing ovation of those 5,000, my first and perhaps my last. And after that, here's where the one phone call comes in. I get a call from the executive director of the American Bar Association who says, hey, I want to thank you. Can we go out to lunch? Sure, networking.
It's always dangerous.
Right?
You're getting more work.
Had a nice lunch. About 4 days later, he calls me again. Hey, can we have lunch again? And I said, sure. And he offered me a job. He had become the new executive director not that long ago and was looking for his special assistant, his right-hand person. And so the dream that I told you that I lost because I didn't go to Georgetown, I would no longer be setting big policies in the rule of law or working with, I don't know, whatever, important people, became my life. The woman that you see on that end is Justice O'Connor. That one is Justice Kennedy in the middle, and I think you recognize the lady in blue. So all of a sudden, that dream was coming back to life. And what I really wanted to do was I wanted to work with the United Nations because I wanted to work on space law, even though I hate math. And I wanted to work on, law of the sea. Either way, I was going to be okay. Up or down on Earth, I'd be good. So I didn't end up doing that part. But I did end up working internationally. And I worked and began the Africa, the Asia, the Latin America, and the Caribbean law initiatives for the American Bar Association. And so, of course, that was so much fun, right? When I worked with the Africa one, that was Justice Ginsburg. When I worked with Asia, it was Justice Kennedy. And when I worked with Latin America and the Caribbean, it was Justice Breyer. And so it was a really wonderful time for me, but here's the thing. There's always the good and the bad, right? I traveled incessantly, all the time. And I did some of the projects that I did were also very difficult. They were projects like anti-trafficking. Some of that first anti-trafficking foundation that you now see was the type of thing that we developed. We worked on RICO law practices and alternative dispute resolution for communities that were, let's just say, at the edge. So these things, they take you emotionally, right? So somewhere between that and the fact that I traveled so much, and if you're looking for me, I'm right there. That's me, with a lot less wrinkles. It takes a real big emotional toll. And my daughters were growing up, and I couldn't go to a baseball game. I couldn't be a room mom. Or if I could, it was like on the spur of the moment. And I did a lot of those things. And I thought, I'm going to miss too much. I'm going to miss too much, so I don't want to travel that much. Now, what am I going to do? If I don't want to travel that much, what am I going to do? How am I going to change from having climbed myself up that ladder and being here to doing something that would become incredibly local? Because I wanted to make the softball games, right? So, as you well know, I became the president and CEO of the American Bar Association. But here's a funny story. When I started looking for a new job, I told my husband, and he knows I'm kind of nuts, but loves me anyway. I told him, I said, okay, I'm done. I am not commuting downtown. I am not traveling. That's the end. And he said to me, so what's your plan? And I said, well, I don't know. There's a whole lot of buildings up and down I-88. Somebody's going to want me. I don't know. Had no plan. And he said, you're not planning on coming to work at the firm because we own a law firm. And I said, oh, no, honey, I want to stay married to you. And I can tell you that we would never have the fights about the legal strategy or anything. It would be about, the person that left the cup in the sink, and then I told him off, and then he told me, why did I tell him off? And, so I knew that that was not going to be an option for us. We are both lawyers. We actually met a long time ago in the whole law school thing. And so when I started looking for a job, here's how I decided. I'm going to look for something that says Naperville in it. That's it. I'm not looking for Western suburbs or Chicago Metro or whatever. It had to say Naperville or bust. And so when I did that, this job kept on popping up, like, I don't know, all the time. And I said, well, I don't know anything about museums. What do I know about museums? I can't apply it. Forget it. And I dismiss it. And I would dismiss it. And I would dismiss it. Until about the 7th time that I actually read the job description. And I said, oh, I could do this. Because the reality was this, they were not looking for a museum expert, right? What they were looking for was somebody that understood transformational work. They were looking for somebody that knew how to manage boards, that understood how to fundraise, that understood how to manage staff, and how to take this 800, sort of century village and turn it into they don't know what. But they don't want to give up the 1800 stuff. They want that, and they want it to grow. That's what they wanted. And so I thought, all right. And we can play a little bit of this, but I think I have it perhaps at a better place. This just is the announcement. So like I told you, here was my path, lawyer or bust. I didn't do it the way that I thought that I would, right? And when I tell you that the transition from one to another was a very bumpy ride, it sure as heck was. But here's what you need to learn, that as you make the transitions, you need to learn how to round those sharp corners at the top and how to throw some dirt on the very low valleys so that when you're going through it, the ride is kind of like this. It's bumpy, but you will always have enough inertia to go back up as you're going down. You're never going to get caught at the very bottom, and you're never going to get cut at the very top of those. And I hope that you keep that in your mind, because a lot of it has to do with your mindset and how you prepare this strategy to make the changes. And so, oopsies. So here's an interesting thing, right? When I began my career, that's the way that you did careers. This right here. It was a good old ladder. And for me, I started at the bottom, right? And I kept, in my 15 years at the American Bar Association, I ended up holding the highest position that any Latina had ever had at the American Bar Association in its, 180 some years or something like that. And I did. I crawled up all those steps. But once I was at the top, I found myself here, right? All the things that I knew that I could do, which were international, meant that I had to travel. I didn't want to do that. So you start thinking, well, maybe if I travel less. Well, maybe if I don't travel, to Africa, maybe if it's just in the United States, it might be better. And you start to do this. But here's the other thing. Today, careers don't follow that path. They really, truly don't. And as a matter of fact, my old boss used to tell me that if you have been successful professionally, you've probably had at least 3 careers. And now they're telling you that it's more like 5, right? And that you're not crawling up a ladder, but it's basically this expansive weave and thing that you do. So I think it's important that you change perspective, that you really think about not the ladder, but what experience do you have? What talents do you have? What things do you have to contribute as you move somewhere else? And that you stay very, very open, and look, you will have more options than ever before. And so what you will start to see is that big old knot is something that is malleable, that you can you can train it. Maybe it's going to go in a circle like this and become something that is truly organized, but perhaps not like a ladder, or you can ring it up into a ladder. It might mean that you're not changing the career in terms of being an accountant, but you're going from a small place to a large corporate world, or you become the accountant for a hospital, which also has, many of them are nonprofit, so they have that whole nonprofit piece that they have to do, rather than if you worked at a big corporation. Who knows? But the point is that your mentality in terms of I have a plan has to include knowing and understanding, attitude-wise, that you're going to be here, and then shifting it to say, okay, how do I start pulling from those strings to figure out what is right for me now? And to be honest, I had a whole plan. I had a whole plan for neighbor settlement. And my plan was that I would be here between 3 or 4 years. I was pretty darn good at transformational work, and I was going to get it done in 3 to 4 years. And then I was going back to my life because my kids would be in college already. They would be gone, and I could go back and become a lawyer again. I've been with neighbor settlement now for about 10 and a half years. So, that'll tell you how great plans are. The other part that I do want you to think about is that there are right reasons to leave a career or a place, and then there are wrong reasons to leave. If you find a new passion in a new field and you just love it, don't do what you don't like 8 or 10 hours a day for the rest of your life. That would be silly. If, like me, it's a better alignment with your personal values or your lifestyle, then change. Then change. Start your plan. If you're looking for other growth opportunities, take them. And of course, I'm going to tell you one thing. People will always tell you, oh, don't talk about money. You talk about money all the time. All the time. I'm in the nonprofit. And like my old boss said to me, nonprofit is nothing more than a tax designation. It is not a goal. And it shouldn't be that for you personally. So yes, indeed, you have to look at your financial advancement. Absolutely and unequivocally. There are wrong reasons to leave. And the major one, I think, is a bad boss or a toxic workplace. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't leave eventually, but that shouldn't be the reason that you hand in your I'm done. And I'll tell you why. Because when you run away from a boss or from a toxic environment, it will follow you. And every place you work at will have somebody like that. And so if you don't know or don't understand the strategies to deal with people like that, you will always be frustrated, right? Now, there's a whole lot of books out there, but I'll tell you the one I love. It's super, super, super duper old. It was old when I started looking at it. It's probably from, I don't know, like the late 60s, early 70s. And for these sort of help books, it's old. It's called How to Deal with Difficult People. And it's about this big, nothing, right? And it divides different personalities, and it gives you strategies on how to deal with people like that. And I know the first one that you're thinking is that big boss that yells, says, I'm going to scream at you. But you know, the avoiders are just as much a hindrance, right? Those bosses or those coworkers that avoid, the people that are completely just can't make a decision are just as bad. And they create those same toxic environments, don't they? So you really need to figure out what those strategies are. And if ever you want me to come back, I'm happy to tell you what I do, but that's a whole other presentation. And besides, how to deal with difficult people does it a lot better than I do. Anyway, if you're bored with your career, is it because you're bored with that job, the one where you are? Or is it truly because you're bored with your career? Like, for example, if you're a teacher, do you want to be in the classroom? Maybe not. But maybe you want to be in the administration piece, in the policy development. Who knows? Chasing trends. Chasing trends, especially with our famous influencers of the world today. You know, everybody wants to be the influencer. And I can make quick cash because I can have a platform and send it off to Amazon, and then I'm going to make $1 million. Don't chase the trends, because most of the time you haven't thought through. And the people that are influencers and so on that are really actually successful, every single one of them has developed a plan beforehand. And I think the other one is that impulsiveness, because you've got a temporary setback, because you hate the person that's going to be there as, I don't know, the president for the next year, but it so works out that presidents rotate every year. Don't make those mistakes, and really evaluate, reflect on yourself. What is it that you are really wanting? And are you at the right reasons, or are you at the wrong reasons? So there are three things that you need to prepare. One is your mindset. The other one are your finances. And the third one I'm going to tell you is really hard, is your resume. Because you think you can prepare that resume and that cover letter one time, and you can send it out to 10, 12, or 20 people, and you are so wrong. You will never be where you want to be if that's what you do with your resume. So I have this clip, and I'm going to show it to you because I want to talk to you about mindset. The mindset of embracing that uncertainty and being adaptable is an absolute. If you don't have that, you will become so afraid to fail. You will become so afraid that you will not be able to move. So I want you to remember, as you hear all this, I don't know squat about museums. This is month 1, and hopefully it's where I want it to be.
In January 2013, after more than 30 years, Margaret Peggy Frank retired as Neighbor Settlement's president and CEO. A year and a half after Mike Kroll stepped up during the interim, the organization now...
Oh, I'm so sorry. Is that not moving?
It's not. I want to move this. this bar, I think it's in our way.
Can you just click on the
Glad-
bar?
There we go.
I've got
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll go to right about there. That's good.
Okay.
Association. I don't know what I can do here, but I really want to come and find out. I think this is part of the challenge. It's part of the fun. Her hiring came almost 2 years after former leader Peggy Frank announced plans to retire.
55-ish. We'll leave it right there.
Okay.
That I have done in the past. I did it for the American Bar Association. I don't know what I can do here, but I really want to come and find out. I think this is part of the challenge. It's part of the fun. Her hiring came almost 2 years after former leader Peggy Frank announced plans to retire.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. Because everybody was asking me for the last month, so what are you gonna do? Well, I can tell you, they told me that I'm supposed to grow this place, so I'm gonna grow it. They told me that I have to be financially astute, so I'm gonna be financially astute. But am I gonna tell you what strategies do I have? No, because number one, even if I had them and I told them, and then as you know how it goes, you plan things and then everything changes, then I'd get all the questions about, well, you said you were gonna do blank and now you're doing something else. What it does is it answers their question and gives you the entire depth and breadth to still do whatever the heck you want to do, right? And the other thing that it does is hopefully it builds trust, right? Because I didn't say, oh my goodness, I don't know, this is such a big job. I really don't know what I'm going to do, right? It didn't come off that way. So let's see now. Now I have to move. Oh, I keep forgetting because I have a Surface. So my apologies. The next thing that you have to set right is your finances. And I tell you again, don't you ever let anybody tell you that you can't talk about money. You always talk about money. You have to budget for your transition. And what does that mean to you? Do you have to begin a savings plan? Do you need a side income? Do you need an emergency fund? Or are you going to draw from your emergency fund? For us, in our lifetime, it has worked both ways. My husband started at a very big law firm in downtown, you know, where they make oodles of money, but they put on these golden cuffs for you. And he didn't like it. He didn't want to do that. And he came home one day and said, I can't stand this. And I actually just want to work for myself. I want to build a law firm. So we went through our finances and made sure that all of our basic expenses could be paid with my salary. Now that meant that we had to draw down on a lot of other things that we wanted or needed or whatever it was, but we figured it out that way. And when I decided that I didn't want to travel anymore, and I said, somebody will want me up and down I-88, I don't know. We did the same thing again, the reverse. And I'll tell you, I did it as a young woman. When I left my ex-husband, and I went back home to my mother, you know, with a big old L on my forehead, right? I have a child, haven't finished law school yet, and basically I had them help and support me for, I don't know, whatever that was, 3.5 years, 4 years, but always with a plan. And I think that's the difference. And I had my plan. My plan was I have 1 more year to finish law school. After that, I have to take the bar, so that's another half a year. After that, I have to find a job. So I gave myself 4 months to find a job. And then I had a whole year to save all my money for 1.5 years. And then I would have enough money to go on my own. That was my plan. So you can see how very different those plans can be, you know, along your life. But you do need that. You need to understand also the salary adjustments. So for me, I was here at the American Bar Association and at the National Association of Women Lawyers. And I was going to come do something I didn't know what it was. So you have to understand that your financial adjustment is going to be somewhere here. And the reason is this. It is not likely that you will be able to transfer from the top of here to the top of there. And if you do, that's great. But if not, your finances have been adjusted so that you can meet your expenses, right? So what do? You research the fields that you might be interested in, and you look at what the median salary, the low to medium salary is for that particular career as a whole. And if you're going to be here in Illinois, you look for it in the Midwest, or you look for it in Illinois, or you know, however that is. But that will give you a realistic understanding of where you can place yourself. And then, of course, are you going to need any other education? Certificates. What do you need so that when you walk in the room for that interview, you can say, oh yeah, but I know about that. Oh yeah, right? For me, as I told you in that when I was a single mom, that's what happened. I had one more year to go. And no money, by the way. Right? But you make, I knew that I knew for me that I needed to finish that year. Now, here we go. The resume piece. I don't know about you, but I hate doing them. And I think that's maybe why, you know, I'm at career number, whatever it is, 3 now. I'm not sure that I have it in me to do it one more time. But the important thing when you're looking at your resume is that you read the description of the job you want first. Because guess what? Employers are looking for you to solve their problem. And if you're smart and you look at those descriptions, the descriptions are going to give you the little nugget about what's really worrying them. And when you put your resume together, you make sure that you add that nugget that says, I can solve that problem for you. And you do the same thing with your cover letter, right? Your cover letter, I know all of us, we just want to say, hi, my name is so-and-so, I'm applying for this job. I have 10 years of experience in X, and I was magna cum laude from the best, school in wherever. Well, the only thing that you've told me is that you have experience and that maybe you're smart, but you're not fixing my problem. And by the way, the 50 other people that are applying for that position, hey, they might have 15 years experience. So now you're not looking so good, right? So for me, it's apply in less places, but make sure that when you apply somewhere, that you're gonna stick out, right? That you're solving their problems. And you wanna tailor your experience to that industry. Here's what I did. Not a day of experience in museum work at all. But the American Bar Association is the largest nonprofit for lawyers in the world. So guess what? NAPER Settlement is a public-private partnership that is actually operated and administered by a nonprofit, right? They were looking to transform the museum and to grow the museum. Well, I had done that. And by the way, I had done that in nation. So if I figured out how to do it there, I could do it here, right? Solving your problem. You need somebody that knows how to manage a board. Well, the American Bar Association had 36 lawyers in their executive board. You wanna, from all around the United States, you wanna know about herding cats, let me tell you. So I could figure out how to do it, with 15 or 20 people. You wanna manage employees. I worked for the executive director of the American Bar Association. And guess what? When the HR issues came to his desk, it was because they were really, 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 really bad. So that's the experience I have. Now, all of a sudden, I'm looking pretty good, right? Even though I've never stepped a day in a museum other than where the public does. And then you have to craft a career change story. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to be somewhere else? And so here is mine. And it's truthful and it's genuine. One, my girls are growing up, and I want to be here with them. I don't want to commute 2.5 hours every single day to Chicago anymore. And I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. for the day anymore. And I got to the point where I didn't even want to go on vacation with my family because I was sick and tired of being in airports and hotels and all those sorts of things, right? Seems genuine. And then the next thing that I said is, I lived in this community for, I don't know, then 25 years or something at the time. And I said, and everything works here. All I have to do is pay my taxes. If there's supposed to be flowers, there's flowers. If it's not supposed to have a bump on the road, then there's no bump in the road. The schools are fine. The grass is always mowed in the park when I go, right? Everything. And I wonder who does that? And the other piece that I think to myself is I have to travel 3,000 miles to make a difference. I'd like to make a difference here where I live, which is true. Now, all of a sudden, I'm looking like a pretty good candidate, right? And remember, I don't have any experience in museums, not even a little bit. So we come to the other end of this, avoiding those pitfalls. And as I tell you, rounding up those corners and filling those valleys, well, let me tell you, you have to start by research. Don't be lazy. You have to do a lot of research about what you're doing or where you're going. And not only about the career, but if you do get an interview, don't be lazy. Don't just go look at, their website. Go find articles. Go see who is interviewing you and go research them. What do they do? What do they like? Is there a connection? Right? The other one, of course, is don't neglect your network. I'll tell you, how I got the job for the National Association of Women Lawyers? It's real simple. I wrote an email, and I sent that email to about 5 friends, among them Susan McNulty, who used to work at the American Bar Association at the time. And it was, hey guys, I'm really thinking of a career change. If any of you know anything, it's just I went on vacation with my husband, and about 2 days later, I get a call on my cell phone, and it's Susan. Hey, you still serious? Yeah, but I'm on vacation. Okay, well, I'm gonna put you in touch with so-and-so. And by the time that I came back, I had an interview, and that's how I used my networks. The third is really important, is to understand your timeline. And here's the best way that I can explain it to you. Think of it this way. When you've actually made the decision to leave or to change or to whatever, think of it like this. That's the day you got pregnant. Okay? Now, you don't have a baby in 40 days. And if you did, it wouldn't be viable. Right? It's going to take you 9 months. And guess what? You're going to be really sick the first 3 months. Right? You're going to be, whatever, dizzy and queasy and not feel well and want to sleep a lot. It's the same thing. It really is. Look at the timeline and make a real timeline of evaluation. Because if you think that this should take you no more than 1 month, when the month comes around, all the fear and the negativity comes at you because you're going, oh my God, it's been 30 days, I didn't find a job, right? The other one is your failure to upskill. Are there things you really need to know that you don't know? And how do you change those? in my world, I didn't know anything about museums. So guess what I did? I went into the American Alliance of Museums and I read everything that I could read. I went to their meetings and their conferences. I found out how they decide, the curatorial people decide how to put things in, how to deaccession things, that's what I did. Because it was imperative that I know enough to be able to guide them and to lead them, right? And then the other piece is the burnout from overextending yourself. And that's part of the reason why I tell you, think about it as pregnancy, because if what you decide to do is you're going to change, but you still have a job, it's almost like having two jobs, right? So if your timeline is too short, you're going to burn out emotionally and perhaps even physically. And I'll tell you the last one, and I know it was at the very top, a few slides before. Here's my advice to you. If you don't like what you're doing, if you want something new, never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever quiet quit. And I know a lot of people do that today. And I'll tell you why. Because when you quiet quit on the company, but you also quiet quit on you. You are no longer creative. You are no longer inspiring for you. You begin to feel all those negative, whatever those things are, and there's, a whole long list. So my advice to you is if you really realize it's time for you to go, then make a plan. Don't quiet quit, because you shouldn't ever quit on you. The upskilling piece, you have to identify those essential skills in the target industry. What is it that they are looking for? Whatever it is. And trust me, that whole thing, internet thing, it's got everything you'd want to know about whatever that career is and what they're looking for. There's a whole lot of free and paid resources that you can go to, a ton of them. I can't tell you how many webinars I do about museum-like things because I don't know enough. And the more that I grow, the more that I need to know, right? You need to gain that practical experience, the idea of the volunteering and the internships and the freelance work that you can do. When I became president of this institution, I'll tell you one of the things that I did. I decided to become an advocate for AAM in Congress. Why? I knew squat about museums, but I know how to do advocacy work. And I used to go with the American Bar Association for Law Day, which also, which happened in May. And so Museum Day happens in February. And so I built more networks. I learned a lot more about museums, and I raised my level of recognition in the field doing something that I already knew how to do. And then, of course, you showcase your skills through a portfolio. And I will tell you honestly that I don't know exactly how you would do it today because you got all the electronic blah, blah, blahs. But I'll tell you what I did do when I went for my interview for this position. I knew and I identified the problems that they had. They wanted to do transformative work, right? So I put together a portfolio, literally a binder, and I divided it. I had tabs that had the 5 major things that I knew they would be looking for. And so with the idea of, here's been my success. I understand that you will need to raise money and to write grants. So here's my writing ability. Here are the grants that I have gotten. And you want somebody that knows how to manage people well. Here are what other employees say about me. And not super thick, because you don't want anything super thick. And I would take 4 copies, one for the recruiter, one for me and another two to, sort of go with whatever the committee was. And I'll tell you what it does. Number one, they know that I know what they're looking for. That's one. Two, when they put the pile of those resumes there, guess what? Mine's screaming at them, right? That's what mine's doing. And so it's an easy way for you to say, look at me, 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 after you have not even been there. So showcase your skills. Don't be bashful. You know who you're selling? You. You. Now, you need to convince that potential employer that you're a high value candidate. And so I've really given you some of those tasks and the things that you need to, that you will need. You need that narrative, of course. Why are you switching? What are you doing? You need to showcase those transferable skills. Those are those 5 tabs in the portfolio. And you need to overcome the lack of direct experience. And for me, the question was, my understanding is that you've had museum experts there, because I did my research, that have been there for decades, that have actually started with the institution when it started, whenever it was 40 years ago or 30 whatever years ago. My job is not to do their job. My job is to do my job, right? That's how you overcome these. And then preparing for the interviews. Have you ever sat there and you're preparing for whatever, for a presentation, for talking to your boss or whatever, and you're talking in the mirror and everything's great? Then the next piece of that is call your husband, your child, your friend, your anybody, and say, sit there. And I'm going to present to you. And then you better be ready for the things they don't like, right? Because that is an important piece, so that when you are before the people that you want to be before, you can portray the things that you want to portray. And you have eliminated, the sort of the burps and the hiccups that you might have. So we're going to try this one more time, and please forgive me, because I guess it's going to go back to the same thing again. It's coming. Make it somewhere around.
Somebody would kind of step up and
Level.
we were hoping somebody would kind of step up and knock our socks off a little bit. We wanted somebody that was going to inspire us to get to that next level, and that's what we were looking for. We had a great history of leadership, and we wanted to continue that. We didn't want to lose anything, but we did want to gain some momentum.
Tamayo-Calabrese hit the ground running.
Do you know where I found that? That desire? It was in the job description. And it was in the research that I did, because here's what happened. The Naperville Heritage Society, Peggy had retired, and they went out and did a search for about 8 months, didn't find anybody. And so the chair of the Naperville Heritage Society stepped in and became the interim leader. And he was there for about 18 months. So now we're talking, 2.5 years or something, right? That they were looking for somebody. Do you know how tired you'd be to be looking for somebody to take the weight off of a board? But if I hadn't done my research, I wouldn't have known that. But I found it in the job description, and I found it in the research that I did, because the newspaper said, hey, they didn't find anybody, so Mike is stepping in as president and CEO. That tells me something really interesting. And you will find those kinds of, nuggets along the way. And as you can see, they wanted somebody that would solve their problem. They didn't want to do the day-to-day, right? Oh, all right. We're going back to the whole surface thing. Right, I think. Yep. There we go. What can you do? How can you leverage the professional contacts that you have? Well, go ask your mentors. And if you don't have one, go get one. I have had, throughout my career, 3. And by the way, 2 are white males and 1 was a female. So I don't care how they come for you, but if they are there to want to really help you, they are a whole entire encyclopedia of knowledge. So go find them. They can help you with recommendations and referrals and things like that. Engage your professional community. What is that professional community that you want to go to? If you decide that you are, I don't know, a CPA right now, but you want to be a banker, then go to the banker conferences. Where are they? Go look for them. And above all, seek those informational interviews. They will help you to really sharpen your skills about how to do an interview when the time comes. And you'll also gain insider knowledge, by the way. So here are some of the takeaways, and I hope the action plans. I hope that you find this interesting. Remember to take small but consistent actions. Remember, you get pregnant, you have a baby 9 months later. Small but consistent actions. And the practical steps are really a self-assessment of what is motivating you to change. And nobody can answer that but you. And then you need to identify the financial needs of what do you need to do if you are really going to make that transition. And of course, setting the network goals. Honestly, most of my career, I haven't applied for a job. You know, they've come kind of the way that American Bar Association one came. From the very beginning. So network, know people. It's absolutely critical. Oops. Hold on. Now, I'm going to show you one other thing that helps me. So when you're thinking about how to do this, I know what you're thinking. I'm going to lay it out on a piece of paper like this, because it's all going to be very logical, right? And then when you start doing this, what happens is you go, oh my God, but what is my husband going to think about this? Oh, wait, what about the finances? Oh, how long do I have? And you become a mess when you start to think of it logistically. And trust me, I'm a lawyer. I love linear thinking. But this becomes really hard. There's something out there, and you can find a ton of them. So it's whatever works for you. I'm just giving you the introduction. It's called mind mapping. And what mind mapping does is it allows you to think creatively and just expand any way you want on whatever side you want for as long as you want. Here's the thing you want. And it just starts to grow so that all those moments of fear or I don't knows and it's tied up in a knot kind of go away because you're not thinking this way or this way. You're thinking expansively, creatively. So I'll show you, and I'm not a great mind mapper. I'm gonna tell you right now, I am not. I am very much on the basics. But here's what I do. I want a new job. So I ask myself questions. That's what I do. Well, what do I need? Right? I'm gonna need a financial plan, adaptable mindset. Maybe I gotta upskill or get some certificates. I gotta talk to hubby. I'm gonna need a new resume. I need to be clear of mind. And then I ask myself, well, if I'm not a lawyer, then what am I? Right? I could be a professor. I could go to like a suburban practice somewhere. Maybe I could do nonprofit or foundation work. I've done that. I could be a community officer or responsibility or professional responsibility type of person. Maybe I can go to corporate world, or I don't know, I could go to some government job. What's the effect on my family? Right? The financial loss and the money, but I'll have more time with my kids and I'll have less travel, so that's good. Well, okay, but if I do this, well, why am I even doing it? Do I want professional growth or do I hate my boss? Am I just burned out? What's the effect on me? Will I miss lawyering? Will I have more time for my kids? Well, can I start over somewhere as a big newbie? Do you see? Now, this is how I do it, but you could do it any way you want to. But for me, it helps me sort of put a frame around the things that might be the fearful things. And the one thing that I also do is I never put this until I'm absolutely sure that I have everything that I want to close out the parentheses. And the reason is because this is just me. Psychologically, when I have closed it, I'm like, I'm done. And then I feel like I'm squeezing something in. So I don't do it because I feel like I've given myself the opportunity to just keep going if I want to, right?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Can you just go back to that picture, that map? I just wanted to take a picture, the previous one. Yes, this one.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give you another. There's a guy, his name is Colin Dunn, and there might be a lot of other, sort of newer types that are better and whatever. I love the way that he does it. He's a little bit quirky, but he really gets it in a very simple sense. So, and we're going to get to the questions, but I do want you to see this. So let's see. There he is. And
mind mapping is a tool that will help you generate ideas quickly about any challenge.
One second. Just because of time. So here he is, and what he's telling you is that he wants a new job. It's one of the reasons that I picked this one.
Get a job. Now, what you do is you time yourself for about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And in that 3 minutes, you generate as many ideas as you can about your particular situation and how to get a job. Let's time me for this exercise. Go. Okay, let's see. Get a job. Well, first, location. Location brings the idea of mind of family. Cost of living. Notice I'm drawing rays. Evan just got out a couple of months ago. I have his number. I'm going to give him a call. Education. What kind of education do I need? Research. I've got to do research. The internet's full of information. I got to figure out how to tap into that information. Where would I go? Education center. And I'm out of time. But that's not where you stop. Now that you've got everything on paper, what you can do is you can take these ideas and organize them. Looks like there's a lot of stuff here about looking for information. I'm going to call that research. That's my first category. I'm going to write down networking, who, Evan, I got to write Evan's name down. I didn't think of networking events, but now that I think about it, I'm going to write that down. Networking events. Job boards, that's part of the research. Let me write that down. What's another category that surfaces in salary negotiation? Okay. Well, now you can see that in a couple of minutes, I was able to support the family. So
See now.
I think salary would be number one. I've generated some ideas about an issue that's very important to me.
This is what I
And
should
I've
do.
done it by myself.
Here's what I'm going to do
I've
next.
taken those ideas and I've organized them into categories, and I've prioritized those categories to a degree to prioritize the work and the way in which I attack.
What that does is it gives you power over what and where you want to go, right? It gives you that ability to take that big old mess and, start to roll it out or make it malleable in any way that you want. Like I said, I like him, but literally there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, that you can go online. I like him because he's just very simple. And that's where I am with mind mapping. I am not an expert by any case. But I tell you what, I use that strategy even today. When I think about, we're doing our master plan, I start to think about, okay, I got a master plan. Where do we want to be in 15 years? And I just, this is what I do. And at some point, we'll put it in order, and then we'll get the experts that actually know how to do master plans to help us put it together. So I think that's it for me. It leaves us about 10 minutes if you have questions. If you don't, thank you so much for spending your hour with me. I hope that you found it helpful. No questions? Holy wow, am I that good?
I just wanted to thank you for that inspiring web, because I think I personally need that inspired woman. This is, and I'm just, like, this big thing for me to just listen such talk.
Well, thank you very much. You've made my day. Anybody else?
Just generally speaking, I don't know if you can answer it. It seems like I'm of the climb the ladder, and then sometimes you hit the top and there's nowhere else to go or what have you. It seems like the younger generations they're just constantly moving around. So as you get older in life, is there an issue with what you'd be looking for based on your age? And they might be going for somebody younger versus your age with experience and what you're looking for. I'm curious if you can speak to that.
So to be truthful, when I was looking for this job, I felt that same way. Because by the time that I was, that I was looking for that job, I was 50. And I thought, they want transformation, they're gonna want some young person that can, move this into, I don't know, whatever. And I think that might be true in some industries, but here's the reality. You know what's above that, above your age, is solving their problem. If you can present yourself as the person that can solve their problem, they're going to overlook whether you are, whatever, 20 or 60. And I found that one of our board members is actually, my guess is that he's in his late 50s if he hasn't crossed over yet. But one of the places that he just retired from was Google. And so the answer for me is focus on solving their problem and not on your age. Because if you focus on your age, here's what's going to happen. You are going to walk in and your own aura is going to give that aura of I'm too old to be here. And from there, you won't be able to recover. So, and so again, that's sort of the value, right? You fill all that up with, I can solve your problem. I have this experience. I know the field. Whatever it is, I'm ready to come to work tomorrow, whatever all those things are. And those are the things that you shoot out to the employer. Because I think kids, on the other end of that, there's people that feel that they don't have enough experience, right? So somebody's always going in, and here's the thing about fear. If I said to you, be afraid of lessons learned, do you think that makes sense? It doesn't. And that's what failure is. Failure is nothing but a temporary lesson learned to provide you with a bigger picture and a better picture. And so, not to say I haven't failed, because I have, but that's not my end. It's not my goal. It's not where I finish. It's really where I've learned something new, something important that will make me better. Any?
I just appreciate your mind mapping concept because any creative knows that that's probably a really good way to brainstorm, and especially in groups. You know, I feel like this is a great practice for anyone in a group setting, especially because there's more free. Depends how freed up you are. Honest with yourself. This really works, you know. So I do appreciate it.
I'm glad that you find it helpful. I find that when I do this, I don't have to solve all the problems along the way, that I can just stay creative. So, and like I said, don't bring me back to teach one of these because I'm not quite there yet. Although if you did, then I'd figure it out, but you know.
I think just to complement what you're saying too is like, instead of the like lack of experience, a lot of times it's like, oh, but you have so much experience. Are you going to be bored at this job? You know, like when you're switching from something where you've been there a while to something else. And I think it goes back to, again, what is the problem you're going to solve? And like, how are you going to be different from somebody young that's coming in? They have a very different idea about coming into work and being in the office and all those lines of things. So there are many things about just, I think, our different ways of going to work that can also be a benefit more than just.
And I'll tell you my answer for that one. Well, because I did get it. Do you think you're going to be happy? You're coming from this big international blah, blah, to be here. And you know what my answer was? What's that?
It's when you're gonna retire too,
Oh, yeah.
because it takes a number of years to train a person up, and you want them to be there for their productive years.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the older you are, the more likely it is that employers are gonna like you because they know you're gonna show up. And you're not gonna just not show up. I mean, the very first employee I ever hired, she just decided she didn't want to show up, right? Brand new business, don't hire, like, so I'm calling, it's like, are you okay? Where are you? 3 days later, it's like, just didn't go to work. It's like, yeah, I don't need that, thank you.
And, you know, for me, the answer is real simple. If they say, well, don't you think you'll be bored for this position or, you know, whatever it is? My answer to that is, number one, if I thought that, I would never have applied. And number two, you've asked me to grow something. You don't know how, and I don't know how. That's what's going to keep me here. But what it does is it slams that door shut, right? And sometimes you need those kinds of answers that literally just slam the door on whatever that is, and you can move somewhere else. That's it.
Well, thank you. I found that so inspirational. So thank you. I'm sure we all came away with something. Appreciate you all coming today. And
I'm sure you can give them whatever the.
did you want your contact info?
Oh,
Here.
yeah,
Okay.
and I'm real easy, at least in this regard. If you want, give me a call, write me, whatever. And if I can help, I'm happy to help. If not,
Sorry, it went to the beginning. There we go. All right. Thank you again.